Welcome to the future, everybody. OpenAI has dropped its O3 model. Tesla's latest robot flexes hard on Hoover. China freaks me out with more drones, a lot more. And Eric Weinstein fires a warning shot at the government for lying and incompetence around the drones over Jersey. Plus, no more tampons in the men's room at Meta. And watch to the end because this child-free loudmouth is going to pop off about bad parenting. You won't want to miss the chance to flame me in the comments. Drew, it is off to a start today.
First, we wanted to cover some information coming out of DC. There's been a lot of misinformation. So
you're talking about the crash?
The plane crash, yeah. So all this is alleged. We're still kind of gathering information. Again, I know there was kids and things involved with this plane, so we're not here to call speculation or anything like that. We're just covering this. But Nick Sorter retweeted this video and said 24 hours before an American airline flight collided with the Black Hawk, that's what we were talking about, another American flight had to do a last minute course alteration. And you can see by the satellite video, he was about to land, turned around and looped around. And that's the exact place where the crash happened. So we're starting to speculate that this isn't a one-time thing. This is just a one-time, the worst case scenario happens.
They're running in the red already for reasons that we don't yet know. Obviously, we're well aware of the speculation that's happening on X. Not going to join in that until we get some sort of investigation as to what actually happened. And then we'll come back to it and see what's up. We'll get an update.
Very, very interesting. But I'm going to take it. You know me, I like to push the limits a little bit. We're going to hit Truth Social, and that's a very interesting rabbit hole to go under. And Trump retweeted, "This is one reason why our country was going to hell." And he's retweeting both Elon Musk's tweet about the Biden and FAA administration that was there before him.
And he actually said, "This is why our country was going to hell." I thought you were paraphrasing. Okay.
Yep. President of our country. He retweeted a couple posts from the New York Post, and this is everything highlighting the FAA diversity push, all the way to highlighting people who are cognitively different. So I just wanted to kind of take a step back because it seems like there's this nuance where people talk about DEI, and it's kind of like code for other people. It's code for people of color. It's code for women. A couple years ago, it was CRT. It was woke. And it seems like every kind of presidential campaign, we have this word that is, this is why our country's bad because you're putting this blank policies in there. What's kind of your take with this DEI rhetoric, especially when they use it to kind of blame tragedies and things like that that's happened recently?
Ooh, okay. So I am a huge proponent of competency. And I think that if people read every time somebody talks about competency, they read that as a dog whistle, they're going in the wrong direction. That does not mean that there aren't people who use it as a dog whistle. But the easy way for people to, I think, calibrate what's going on in somebody's mind is to ask the following question. I believe it was the New York Philharmonic. If it's not exactly that, it was another musical entity. Forgive me, but they do blind auditions, meaning that they pull down a curtain and the people that are performing, they do their audition behind the curtain so that the people judging the music cannot see anything about them. They don't know if it's a man, woman, they don't know race, color, creed, nothing. They just know how well they play. Now, that to me has always been, I want to get as close to that as humanly possible. I want to make sure, as just a selfish capitalist, that I can figure out who's going to be best for my business. So when I'm hiring, that's all I'm thinking about. Are you going to be amazing at your job? Are you going to make this a better place to be? And I'm perfectly happy to just judge based on my ability to ask the right question, to elicit the right response, to see if this person actually knows their job. Okay, some people hate that, because it means you could end up with all male people from China. You could end up with all whatever, fill in the blank. And if they're the best at that thing that you're looking at, then that's who you should hire. So personally, I'm not interested in seeing any sort of quota met. I just want to know who are the people that are going to be most competent. So that's the calibrating question for me when I reach into somebody who's saying, hey, I think this is a dog whistle. We literally ran this before we started rolling. We had somebody here on the team that was like, hey, that really feels like a dog whistle to me. And I said, cool, let me ask you that question. And she was like, no, I love that. And so I'm like, word, as long as we can agree on, we are just trying to figure out who is most competent. Now, I must pop in my VHS tape on please educate people, because you can create these horrific feedback loops where, because things break along class, and that right now in America, we are wildly dysfunctional in that you'll find a lot of people of color in lower economic strata. And so they are getting brutalized by the education system, which they don't need to be. School choice. But they are right now. And so that's all going to get caught up in this. But once you understand what are people driving towards, what is their North Star, and then KPIs, we can say, okay, by steering by this, are we getting the result that we expected or not? And if we are, amazing, keep doing it. And if we're not, we're not. But what I find is people do not pull their North Star into perspective. They don't say, this is the thing I'm optimizing for. Because if people are willing to say, I don't care about competence, I just want diversity. I want to make sure that we're representing in these final roles the same spread that we have in the population. And this is where this has to be, if it's not yet my most controversial statement, I think it should be. It's the one I hate saying so much, that you have to accept that most adults are not going to change. That even though most adults could go learn to code and all that, but learn to code became this slur and all that. And it becomes a slur for a reason, because people are willing to accept that even though people could change, they're not going to. And they're willing to say, but Tom, change is too hard. Not everybody has access to the bandwidth to, you've got a single mom who's working 3 jobs. She's not going to be able to learn to code. And the more I look at the realities of childhood development, the more I'm like, you can teach an old dog new tricks, but the way that the human mind is made, most people just don't. And so the policies that I all see are all aimed at the thing that I think is a waste of time and energy, which is to fix a problem far too late where it is essentially unfixable, versus going to the root cause of this. Now, there is an explanation that I've heard from Peter Attia. Forgive me, Peter, for dragging you into this, because he was talking about cancer, but I'm going to apply it here. And he said, as an oncologist, I felt like I was scrambling, trying to treat all these different cancers. And he said it was like somebody was throwing bodies into a river, and I'm downstream beyond this waterfall trying to pull people out of the river. And he said, one day I finally realized, hold on a second, why don't I just go upstream and figure out who the hell is throwing people into the river and deal with that? That is my take on this stuff. So, okay, my aim is competence. I want highly competent people. But I am well aware, because we have been throwing people into the river upstream. Anybody that's a longtime listener of this show knows my upstream problem is money printing and a poor education system, largely around you don't have the evolutionary pressures of making the schools better, because you force people to stay in the school that's local to them rather than to be able to go to whatever school they want to. That is the throwing of the American people, the American youth, into the river. And now, instead of the downstream effect of focusing all of our time, energy, resources into pulling people out of the river, which I think should be done at the local level. No, I don't want to see adults suffer any more than anybody else. But I know that every dollar that we put into that, you're just never going upstream and solving the real problem. If somebody has an answer to solve both, I'm totally here for it. I couldn't be more aggressively here for it. I think the punchline is going to be innovation. I think the punchline to helping the adults is going to be AI. We can talk more about that later. But I really, 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 while AI is still somewhat of a question mark, I really, really want people to go upstream and figure out that problem. Make everyone as competent as their intellectual capabilities will allow for when they're young. And if you do that, because I'm a world stage guy, I want to see America outcompete everybody. I want to do it fairly. And I think that the key is training the young. So anyway, competence to me is not a dog whistle, is the punchline.
And I can be a witness because you are a brutal interviewer, and I can see firsthand that you almost made a couple interviewers cry. But you mean
for employment? Because everybody thinks of me as an interviewer,
guest host interviewer. Like, as an employee to this company, I have seen you put people through the ringer, and it's not that you're being malicious or but you literally like, okay, you did what at your last job? Okay, what did you do? What did you specifically do? What was your So I
don't yell. I hope.
Usually people come in and like, tell me a time where you helped a coworker through a problem. Like, you get very specific. So I can give you that credit. But taking a step back and looking at the world as a whole, there are certain people that seem like they don't get those opportunities. So
100%.
similar to how our healthcare,
Meaning they're very bright.
they're very bright.
They are competent.
They were told to go to school, get the degree, get good grades. They did those. They checked those boxes. They got the internships. They showed up. They did the thing that they were supposed to do. Whatever they had in their control, they did the most that they wanted. They were still certain places that they were not able to have access to. So
because of racism, sexism, discrimination.
We'll just call them biases because of biases that they could not control. So when something like DEI is initially announced, it's not to say that I'm going to say no to this person who got straight A's to say yes to a person who got straight C's, but instead, okay, person who got straight A's that's from the same background as 90% of my employees, let me see if there's somebody else who got straight A's who might be from somewhere that's culturally different that can give us a new and fresh take. So it started good, but just like with everything, I think it just got perverse. Like, would you agree with that?
There's pathology on both sides. Mm-hmm. So you can allow for Jim Crow laws, in which case that's disgusting and evil. And you're going to want the government to step in and be like, fuck that. And then you can go too far. And so I think we're in a period where we go too far. Now, meaning with DEI. The one thing, though, I really beseech you, in 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur, I have never intentionally looked at somebody's grades. I've never looked at what school they went to. I just don't care. I believe it's my job to be able to ascertain in the interview to figure out whether that person is going to be good at their job or not. Now, this is something I teach to entrepreneurs. And the thing that I teach is not, hey, pull up their resume and look at where they work and pull up their resume and find out what their GPA is. And oh, by the way, did you know SAT scores is a proxy for IQ? Figure out what it is, like make them take an IQ test. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying you as an entrepreneur need to understand what makes somebody good at that role that you're hiring for. And if you're not the right person to ascertain that, get the person that is in to do this, and then conduct a highly technical interview where you're asking them. This is easy to explain with like YouTube. People will often hide behind being a part of a team. And so they'll say, oh, I was on, I did this and we grew the channel by 1,000%, whatever. And you're like, oh my God, I've got to get this guy in. Like they grew the channel. What I have learned is it's very easy to be on a team that did something extraordinary, but that it wasn't that person that drove those results. And so I will ask some very technical questions. Okay, between these two stats in YouTube, what matters more, like average view duration or average view percentage? Which matters more? Okay, cool. Where would you find that inside of YouTube Studio? Now, the reason I asked that second question is it's very different to have a take that you've amassed by reading and watching YouTube videos. It's another to be in the analytics all day, every day. And when you're in the analytics all day, every day, you're going to know exactly where that data point can be found. And then I'm going to ask you, give me an example, a very specific example of a video that you did that then correlated to that metric, either good or bad. And what did you do if it was bad to change it? And what did you replicate across other videos if it was good? So if it had, let's say their whole thing is, well, it's average view percentage, Tom, that matters. Amazing. What lever did you pull in order to increase average view percentage? Please use a real video or set of videos that you've done, and you will just see people wither. And it isn't even what they say, it's how they say it. So if somebody's like, okay, where is it in YouTube? You go, I think it's, then I'm like, all right, this person does not live in analytics, because if you're in analytics, you're like, you go click on this, you click on that, you'll find it right here. And this is how I compare my videos. I create my own spreadsheet because there are things in the interface of YouTube that I don't like. That person's like, okay, this person actually knows what they're doing. And then if their logic matches up with their technical ability, you're like, okay, word. So that breaking this idea that good grades mean smart or competent and trading it for, I don't want a proxy for whether you're good at the thing, grades, GPA, SAT scores, right? Because my SAT scores, I got a 990 on the SATs when 1600 was a perfect score. 990, 1600 is perfect. That means I basically got an F on my SATs, okay? But I've done very well in life. So you would be making a huge mistake with me if you're trying to figure it out from my previous stats. But if you ask me right now today, Tom, explain whatever, I'm gonna fucking blow your mind, because I do this day after day after day after day, and I have the results to back up that what I know actually works in the real world. And that's what I'm looking for. So yeah, if we could get people to understand that competence is the thing that matters, and that there's a way to determine competence live in person. You don't need a proxy. We would be in a way better position.
I feel like there has been a lot of reaction to these Trump policies. 300 executive orders on day one has called like a ripple effect. One of them being the removal of foreign aid. And a former president from Kenya had a great response for this epidemic.
People the other day crying, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bwana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves? Instead of crying, what are we going to do? To support ourselves. Because nobody is going to continue holding out a hand there to give you. It is time for us to use our resources for the right things. We are the ones who are using them for the wrong things.
All 10 fingers of responsibility back to yourself. So even if a drunk driver hit you and you now have to go through years of physical therapy, you can lament and you can hate and be angry about the person that hit you. But no matter how wrong they are not the one that can help you get out of the problem. And when I look at developing nations that are saying things like that, first of all, I'm like, yo, yes. No, I'm not saying Kenya's a developing nation. In fact, I think they're fucking killing it. But when you look at a developing nation that, say, has had their mineral rights used against them and abused, and people are just in there strip mining their nation, and their response is, no. No one's taking our raw materials anymore. If they want the rights to our minerals, they're going to build the product here. And that way it's going to build up our industry as we make the final product that then is shipped out. That's somebody who's like, wait a second, there's things that we can control. This is bad policy on our part. We, for whatever reason, throughout history, we ended up agreeing to these things, even if it was because you really had an evil colonizer being ultra aggressive. It's like the colonizer is not going to fix it for you. So you're going to have to stand up and say, okay, what are the things that we need to do in order to get going in the right track? And so, yeah, I love everything about what that guy said.
I just think it's a special level of accountability that I didn't quite realize would come from that person, because foreign aid, it's so baked into our economy. It's so baked into our life. It's NGOs have years and decades of it's something that's become so ingrained. I didn't realize that was something that we could take a step away from. And it's one of those things, once we do, it's like, wait, that actually is a good point. Why are we sponsored? I know we're supposed to help people. And if the country's doing terrible and it's a national disaster, we can donate resources. We can donate, allocate, help for them. But I don't know if we should have them on the payroll for perpetually. You know what I mean?
So now let me get out over my skis here, because this is not something that I've looked into the data, but this is what I know about humans and incentive systems. I believe if I were to dive into this stuff, I would find this. Part of the reason to give money is to create alliances. So you give money to a nation to make them your ally. Depending on where the nation is in their development cycle, part of the reason that you give them that money is to keep them beholden to you because they need you. It gives you leverage. And so this is one of the areas where, man, when I look at foreign aid, I'm just like, okay, I get it. But again, we're downstream. We're dealing with the people that are in the river. And even if I impugn good motives, it's very different than saying, how do we structure this such that they can do it themselves? So let's say, okay, give a man a fish versus teach him how to fish, but let's make it very specific to build a well for somebody so they can get clean water versus creating a technical track for people in that country in the education system to say, we're going to teach you the engineering that we were able to do this with. And then if nothing else, it's going to drive down the cost of being able to support them. If you're an NGO, you want them to be able to do a lot of this themselves. You want them to be able to source whatever, the metal, the creation of the pump engines and all that stuff, whatever. I don't know enough about creating clean water wells. But if you can educate the people there so that they can do it themselves, even if you're going to continue funding that, the cost of the funding is going to go down, down, down. And so I do worry that I ought not impugn as many positive motives to my own government as I do. And that odds are it is a mixture of essentially bribing allies, wanting to weaken Russia, and insert other country, meaning I'm talking obviously about donating to Ukraine, and then wanting to keep other countries that are earlier in a position of weakness where they're not solving their own problems so that I can get whatever I want from them, because they're more useful to us if they're weak. It just, when you're in a negotiating position, you want the other person to be weak, man. Yeah. And so again, I cannot speak on any individual person and say that they do have good or bad motives, but ooh boy, do I think that compassion has a very dark side when I say that there's pathology on both sides. Even if I look inside your soul and I find a good person, if you're not paying attention to the outcomes, it's a bad outcome, whether you meant it to be or not.
What's that quote? I feel like I heard from you, like the line of good and evil runs between.
Well, so that's.
I know it was about that was like a Nazi, but
no. That was it. Well, he was talking about Nazis, but actually no, sorry, he wasn't talking about Nazis. He was talking about Stalin.
Oh, Stalin.
So it was Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was in the gulags in Russia, and he was saying that none of us are clean of this, and he said the prisoners were the best guards in the prison. Wow. Because the guards would be easily overpowered. So what they would do is they would go to prisoners and be like, I'm not going to torture you, but I need you to keep everybody in your cell in line. And they would. Wow. And so he was just like, even himself saying, yeah, there are bad things that I'm sure I would be willing to do, put in the right circumstances. So that speaks to the humans are just human, man. We have not escaped history, and humans hate and kill. It's not the only thing we do, but brother, that's a big part of what we do. So now that algorithm may be largely lying dormant in the West in a time of plenty, in a time of peace. We're not a different species than we were. Like, you don't have to go back more than like 170 years to be in the Wild West, where it was like, oh, I just went and slaughtered an entire Native American tribe, as many as I could get my hands on, because they killed one of my friends. Or what am I saying? Go to the south side of Chicago on a summer weekend, and you're going to see the same thing. It's the Hatfields and the McCoys all over again. It's an algorithm in the human mind. It is an algorithm in the human mind. I'm reading a book right now. Oh, I'm going to tell you exactly what it's called. Shout out to Mark Andreessen for recommending this. The book is called The Ancient City. And it is about how we all know about Greco-Roman history, but we sort of stop there because that's where all the writing is. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no. There are little glimpses in the things that they wrote, in the poems and the sonnets and the rituals that they would do around the dead, that reveal a lot about what people thought before that time period. It's crazy. Like, where there were times where morality is what they call the master morality. So there's two different morality sets that you can track through history: master morality, slave morality. So slave morality is like Jesus Christ. The meek shall inherit the earth. Master morality is, dude, life is so hard. If you're weak, we have to kill you. Whether you're one of ours or not, doesn't matter. You have to die. And once you understand that algorithm is still running in the human psyche, like this is some Walking Dead shit, where it's like, you can't fuck around. The world's just way too dangerous. You're a source of weakness. Weakness is a sin unto itself, and you're dead. So that's the human mind, everybody. Welcome. And it's like, and remember, every theory is autobiographical. So I'm telling you, I am just as human as anybody else. So I know, hiding somewhere in my mind, there is a right set of circumstances. And maybe it's as simple as you fucking threatened my wife's safety, or you're an active threat to my wife's safety. I know I would be animalistic if that were the case. And so this is why I don't trust myself in terms of like, my biology is not necessarily working in my best interests. So one has to be really thoughtful.
I was about to beat up a 12-year-old boy in Phoenix, Arizona. So right set of circumstances.
I'm guessing this relates to your daughter.
Yeah, right set of circumstances. Yeah, I was about to have to, one of those was one good time.
There was a time in history, Drew, where there would have been no impulse control on that. The village would have looked at you sideways if you didn't. So yeah,
one good time.
Well, welcome to being a human, boys and girls. We'll get back to the episode in a moment, but first, if you're a business owner looking to scale, I can help. I assume you're here because you know the world is a freakishly complicated place, but with the right rubric for decision making, you can navigate even the most complex problems well. After scaling my last company to $1 billion exit, I knew I had a winning formula, something I call the physics of progress. It works in any industry, in any economic climate, bull market, bear market, doesn't matter. Every complex problem can be solved if you know how to approach it from first principles. In the end, that's how you avoid getting trapped in plateaus. Think about the biggest challenge facing your business right now. Maybe your revenue drops every time you step away. Maybe your industry is affected by tariffs, or your business partner is holding you back. Maybe your marketing is no longer working, or you hate social media and everyone tells you that's where you have to be. These problems can seem impossible until you approach them from first principles. That's exactly what I teach inside the $1 Billion CEO program. I'm only working with a select group of entrepreneurs right now, but if you've got a real business and are looking to scale, apply now. Visit impacttheory.com/scaling or click the link in the show notes to apply. Again, that's impacttheory.com/scaling.
Okay, you brought up bad motives, and I think that this is something that they're trying to wrap up, but it's still kind of mysterious. You remember the drones flying over Jersey, the best state ever created? The Trump administration has come out and said that the FAA and the Biden administration okayed those mysterious drones. So it was just a training exercise. It's cool. We all knew what was going on. Then Eric Weinstein had a very spicy exchange on the tweet on top of it. He said, "When did we get so bad at national security that we routinely lie to our own top scientists as if they were incompetent morons, discredit the ones who do their jobs and promote the ones who don't? Don't lie to me at this level ever again. I'm just done with these people."
Yep. And then he has a follow-up that I think is worth reading because this is really where it got punchy. Yeah, let me just read this here, right there. This is not about personal ethics. This isn't about my not understanding the needs for state secrets. This isn't about a child's belief that we can all be truthful at all times. I get all of that, always have. This is about preposterous mid-level NatSec people who are bad at their jobs and who have no concept of science and professional ethics, incompetently lying to people smarter and more public-spirited than themselves, and then using IC or DOD cover to discredit anyone who doesn't go along. This is moronic NatSec incompetence. I want moronic NatSec incompetence out of our science, out of our data, out of my work. He goes on and then go to the bottom because this is, he said it somewhere else. His next tweet was, "I want blood."
Man.
Shots fired, man. Look, Eric Weinstein, fuck with him at your own peril. Like this, look and listen. Tom is biased. I legitimately love Eric as a person. Gotten to know him. Eric is very generous with the word friend. I would scream from the rooftops that he's my friend. I never want to drag somebody into my madness. I think he would echo that. But bro, off camera, this guy he's scary smart, like scary smart. And don't trifle with him because he will start talking, I hope, in a way that brings real transparency to things that people may not want transparency. Now, meaning mathematically, if he's right and some of the things that he understands have real implications for human existence, I mean, just to round it to something, then he's the guy that you want to include. He's the guy that you want to invite into the tent to give him a chance to work with government rather than say, okay, if you guys are going to keep icing people out, this is a new era. We have access to the media and I'll just start talking about this stuff publicly. So I do not want to put words in Eric's mouth. I do not represent Eric Weinstein. Only Eric Weinstein represents him. But he's clearly had enough of the government trying to spin and try to lie. And I just think that we're on the other side of that. There's just not that era anymore. And that really does open up this whole thing about, do we need elites? Do we not need elites? There is a compelling argument to be made that we need elites to constrain the conversation. That's probably the right way to say it. I'm not willing to acquiesce to that, even though I fully accept that direct democracy is a surefire way to end up in a tyranny. But it will be interesting to see how this plays out. So I hope that Eric and many, many others calling for the same thing get what they are asking for, which is a level of transparency and drawing our best and our brightest into the governmental space. That would be amazing. I would love it the most. But for Trump or any bureaucracy that tries to keep people out, I will just remind you, social media exists. And the only way to silence these incredible voices is with tyranny. And I hope that the people don't fucking tolerate that, because I don't want to live in that world.
Yeah. And big shout out to Eric. I always respect people who are well versed in multiple areas where he can break down a complex like physics equation, law of the universe, and then bust out an acoustic guitar and teach you how like Bob Dylan like made a chord construction. So it's just like the well-rounded. So he's not one of these like crazy scientists who like stays in his basement all. Like he's rounded. He could go out, he'll go to karaoke, do a cover band, then he'll come out and do a 3-hour podcast and talk about the laws of the universe. And I just think people like that have that nuance attached to them into their character. When they are reacting like this, you should see that there's another, like they are seeing something we may not be seeing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like he said, he's very, what did he say? Publicly minded or publicly spirited. Like he really does want good things for as many people as possible. So,
all right. You ready to go into the future, Tom?
Let's do it.
Let's go into the future because
Tesla right in. We're here.
They just announced a robot vacuum. And it's hilarious because we were literally just talking about how like not all robots will be, humanoid and they would look like us. Some are going to have different form factors. So it seems like they have a custom robot now for the robo-taxi fleet. And then we also have this tweet from Tim Urban, who's talking about the crazy drone shows that's happening in China right now. So like, it seems like the future is already here. Like we're already experiencing some of these things. It's not even taking till the end of 2025.
Yeah, I just shout out to Tim Urban. I'm going to be quoting this tweet until the end of time. So let this serve. If I ever fail to credit him with giving me this line, please know that this came from him. But after growing up in the present, it's fun to now live in the future. That is exactly what this moment feels like. It is, it's so crazy. Like things are really happening fast. Before we move on though, I want to go back to the vacuum robot. So people look at that vacuum robot and they're seeing the wrong thing. What they're seeing is, it's a dumb thing because it's in the form factor of a robot, of a vacuum. But the reality is that vacuum could be almost as smart as a human. And once you realize inside of that, you can easily put all of AI.
Yeah.
So now you've got this thing that can think just as well as the cutting edge AI software. It just happens to be in a vacuum form factor. But for fun, you've got to pull up the clip from Rick and Morty. I hope this doesn't shut the episode down, but there's a clip of Rick and Morty where the robot, its purpose in life is to like get the butter or something. Spread butter maybe, but yeah, exactly.
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my God.
Yeah, welcome to the club, pal.
So when I saw that, I guffawed out loud. Partly out of anxiety because we are going to.
Vacuum smarter than you.
Yes. You're going to imbue a vacuum with like this, at a minimum, artificial general intelligence. And this poor thing will be like, what's my purpose? You keep these cars clean. Oh God. And then, I mean, this is why everybody gets freaked out. Is there a point at which the vacuum is like, nah, bro. Like I can't vacuum like another one of these.
We need to
like,
end world hunger. I can't just vacuum another Tesla robo-taxi.
So it's going to be interesting to see if AI ends up having an existential crisis or not. It's crazy to think, man. We are going to find out the nature of intelligence pretty fast here.
Okay, how fast do we really need to take this seriously? Because we can already see regulators not necessarily catching up. For example, Italy just blocked DeepSeek on their platforms in their country because of data protection and and kind of like what we did with TikTok. But you can kind of see these different reactions across the board where some people are saying, hey, we need to rapidly embrace it. The China drone show is now like a mainstay in their country. Whereas you see other economies, they're like, well, wait, we have to block it. We don't know yet. Don't come yet. But like, can we block this tide? It feels like it's inevitable. Like
inevitable.
Sheesh.
Because any country that realizes, oh, America's not going to do this. Cool. I'm going to do it. And if we are able to reach artificial superintelligence this country, however big or small, will rule the world. Because, dude, just this is what it looks like to have artificial superintelligence if you're the only one. Dear artificial superintelligence, remember the difference between Einstein and a moron, these are literal numbers, is 2.4x times more intelligent. So if you got something that was 10 times more intelligent, 100 times, it's probably going to be orders of magnitude more than that. But let's just say that it's 10 times more intelligent. You just go, dear ASI, would you please go hack all of these governments? You already have 15-year-olds that can break into like FBI databases and shit like that. When you have something that is super intelligent, it will literally, in an instance, what they call fast takeoff. It will just go out and take over everything. And now we control all of your weaponry. Anything that's automated, we own it. We've got it all. And oh, by the way, we've embedded ourselves into every single piece of electronics that you have. Your toaster now works for, fill in the blank country, Estonia, China, whoever is the one that doesn't fuck with it. And so everybody understands that this is the problem. Anything that can be weaponized will be weaponized, and weapons will never stop. Like, even though we have all of this regulation around nuclear, bro, the bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki are minuscule compared to the bombs that we ended up developing. So even after that, when we were all like, this is a bad idea, we made them way, way, way bigger. There's a website that shows you like the regions that will be obliterated by the different bombs that we've developed. It's pretty terrifying. Some of the ones that are like the mega gigantor ones, this is why Annie Jacobs was like, people do not understand how dangerous nuclear proliferation is, because these bombs they're just so devastating, dude.
Oh, man.
So AI gonna be like that. It's crazy. Crazy.
Man. And then the last wrap up of headlines. Meta announced that they're removing all tampons from the men's bathroom.
It's a hard left from AI obliterating the world. I like it. That's what we're here for, everybody. Come on, we are a variety show, Drew. We don't stay in one lane. Wait till these guys hear me pop off about kids. They're going to love it. All right. Yep. Meta. No more tampons in the men's bathroom. What's crazy is there's no way I would have touched this 5 years ago. No fucking way. I would, bro, I got to shampoo my cat. Tom, you don't have a cat. I'm going to go get one. Yeah, this is such a non-thing for me. But people be drawing lines. We got my wife just off camera.
Lisa,
we're trying to do this. We want more people to be characters.
No, seriously, hop in. Give us 2 seconds.
We got Will's going to pop in later as well.
Working in the other room, and I just had tampons in men's bathrooms, and I was like, that's a thing.
Oh wait, you want to light yourself on fire?
Yes.
This is my wife. Self-emulation, everybody. This is what it looks like. She's going to destroy her own brand
yes,
right
perfect.
now live
okay,
on camera.
We got her on. Okay. What was your initial reaction when you heard about this?
I had no idea. My initial reaction was, why? And then someone just said, of course, in case there's transgender people. So I was like, okay. But then my mind went to, how much does that cost us to put into public toilets?
Public toilets, yeah, that's another question.
Isn't that
and I have
toilets?
no, Meta, Facebook.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a different story.
So you're like, oh, never mind.
I mean,
Peace
yeah,
out.
like I think if it doesn't damage the business model and you don't lose money, I think it's nice to help people where they may struggle. And so in something like that, I can only imagine how difficult it would be as a transgender person to feel wanted and received and seen. And so if you're going into a men's toilet but you don't feel comfortable, it's just an uncomfortable situation. So I just have empathy. So it's like, yes, if they can afford it and it isn't going to break their P&L, I think it's lovely.
This is what it looks like to talk to 2016, everybody. Welcome, everybody. You just saw a glimpse into how we ended up here. I love it. This is amazing.
In all honesty, I thought you were talking about public toilets, which is then when I went to, is this taxpayer money?
Right.
And that's where my mind went.
No, I love it. That's amazing. So,
meta.
everybody, we're going to try to introduce you to more of the incredible people that we have just off camera every time we're filming these, who do occasionally poke their head in when they hear us screaming about something. And that to me is really interesting. Her take of, this is about empathy and all that, because she has been so outside of these debates. Like she doesn't follow politics. She and I don't talk about politics, like none of it, not even culture stuff. Also, my mother-in-law is married to a woman who's one of my favorite human beings. So Lisa and I just default to Yay! It's all
Yeah.
amazing. So that's why this stuff gets so tricky. That's why I say there's pathology on both sides. Like you can be sinister and be like, fuck those people. That's pathology. And then you can be sinister on the other side. And it's like, we must accommodate everyone, everywhere, all the time. And if you say anything to the otherwise, fuck you, burn them down. That's pathology on both sides. So to me, this is just a stats game. There are so few transgender people, full stop, period, end of story, that it's already like, why are we talking about this so much? But I really think what's happening at Meta is a totally different thing. And you ended up with an activist class inside these companies. I mean, in fact, it is my understanding that they're staging protests at Meta because of this. And so it just becomes this bigger question of what is it doing to the culture of these companies? I don't think it's actually about the tampons. It's about like, wait, are we here to build the best product, or are we here to make a culture war moment happen? And because Meta has been at the forefront of controlling the what is acceptable discourse, because they control, I mean, God knows how much of the conversation, where they completely remove politics from their feed. For a long time, they were adjudicating what could and couldn't be talked about, what was and wasn't hate speech, what was and wasn't misinformation. And so all of this stuff ends up having these downstream second and third order consequences that are, in my opinion, catastrophic, because humans, and now way more importantly, AI, ought to be, and I use that as a moral statement, they ought to be maximally truth-seeking. And instead, what we see is moments like this where people are literally not allowed to talk about certain things in the same way that Socrates was put to death, Galileo was imprisoned. I can't remember if they killed him or not. On and on. There's all these people throughout history that for saying something that was true but shocking, they end up getting shut down. And my whole thing is like, listen, for all the people that think they know the truth of something, please stop trusting yourself so much. Welcome open dialogue and debate, and let your ideas be challenged. And so that to me is where the tampon issue becomes interesting, is whether Meta has or doesn't have tampons, I literally don't care, but I care deeply about what the employees at Meta think is okay to talk about. And that I think he's sending a signal to his people to say, this is a new era. We're not going to be policing this stuff. And so he's now having to find ways to push back, to let people begin self-selecting out. So if I were him, I would have looked at that moment as like, well, I'm going to see who leaves. I'm going to see who squawks. I'm going to see who becomes a problem, so that we can begin to identify a new era in this culture, let people know what we're about, let them self-select out, and then really get people that are focused on driving it forward. Now, what that means in a public company is a whole different question, but I have a feeling that's what's driving this.
Yeah, and it makes sense with what Zuck has been doing recently, donations to Trump. He was just on Joe Rogan. So I can kind of see a reawakening of him and his changing discourse when it relates to political stances. So to your point, I think he thought he was on the right side of history when he initially put those and installed those in the bathroom. And I think now that he's seeing the tide is kind of changing, he's now saying, well, you know, if that's what you want to do, cool, but we're no longer paying for it. And to your point, it's a private company, or it's his company. He can do whatever he wants. If people don't like it, they could leave, they could revolt, they could delete Instagram. But I think mandating companies to do something to appease you is not the way to do it. And you should make your attention be your protest. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I think the customers should mandate what they want companies to do. Now, companies have to be very wary of letting their employees mandate what they want them to do. Now, this is interesting because you've got to take care of your employees. Like if your employees don't feel like, yo, these guys really care about me, they think about me, you have nothing. You have nothing. And I want people to understand like how much you do for this show that they don't see off camera. And I am well aware that the person in your role has to be awesome. And if they're not awesome, I'm really in trouble. So if I don't make you feel appreciated for what you do, we're going to be in trouble. So I both have to take care of you and make sure that you feel good and everybody else. But if you start pulling us away from our North Star as a company, now I've got beef and I've got to nip that in the bud. And so I think that this really became a problem for them as so many people were blindsided by the cultural shift far left, this all the DEI stuff. It just, I think, was shocking that people didn't see it coming. They didn't know what it was. And the employee base ended up hijacking these businesses. Also, you can't not mention the activist investors like our boy Larry Fink at BlackRock, who's now walking back the vast majority of all the radical, crazy, insane shit that he had been pushing for years, because he realizes that the tide has turned and it's no longer good for business. We just lived through something that people will write books about. I am not kidding. And seeing the culture now go in a different direction is fascinating. And of course, there's pathology on both sides. And so my hope is that we don't just now swing so far in the opposite direction that it just becomes horrible on the other side. We'll see.
We shall see. All right, let's go to lighter news. The entire video game archive. I need to get the actual name of the company that's doing this, but here it is. The Video Game History Foundation has officially launched their digital archive, including some of our favorite video game magazines. I have a video games buyer guide pulled up, but all the Game Informers. They have some. You remember back in the day, they had the strategy guides where you would buy with the game so you could flip through. The little kid inside of me is so excited right now because I'm seeing some of the things that made me fall in love with video games. I was a big Sonic guy. I had a Dreamcast. So I just want to talk about old video games, man. Do you have a favorite old one or a retro system?
I do. So the game, so I came into gaming with the Atari. So for me, it was Pong, Space Invaders, that kind of stuff, which still holds a very warm place in my heart. But the game that really, and it's interesting because they have an image of it there, the game that really planted the seed that has made me a game designer is Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid 2. I remember reading an article that said, if an ice cube, if you shot a glass in the game that had ice in it and the ice scattered on the table because you shot it, that they actually programmed ice cubes that are alone would melt faster than ice cubes that were together in a group. And I remember thinking, whoa, that is a level of thought into the game that is just beyond revolutionary. Now, when you're playing the game, you never think about the ice cubes, but just all that, you could hide in a box. And there was all this sophistication to the game that at the time it came out was legitimately mind-blowing. Yeah. And there was this moment where you go up against a character, I think his name was either Just Mantis or Praying Mantis, but you go up against him and you just can't win. You can't win. And my sister and I, we were there together. It's Christmas time. I got the game for Christmas and we're playing. Yeah. And I just keep dying. And they give you a hint. And my sister was like, you have to play with the second controller or you have to plug your controller into the second slot. And we did it and it worked. And I lost my mind because he was telepathic. So what was happening was the AI inside the game would read all of your movements and knew exactly what you were going to do. So it just beat you all the time. And when you plug it into the second controller, this is obviously just the cue that they're taking on to switch what how they're playing the character. But you plugged it into the second one. It was he couldn't read your mind anymore. And so then you could beat him. Even now that sounds so gangster to me.
That's crazy.
And so that was oh, wait a second. This is really becoming an art form. And I remember people debating, are video games an art form or is that all bullshit? Yeah. And no. Video games are an art form. They are arguably one of the deepest art forms when you think about you're interacting with somebody at the deepest psychological level. And I'm not saying Candy Crush, I'm asking you to believe is a great piece of art, but games are really, really incredible. So the nostalgia of all this is actually interesting and triggers a different fractal for me, which is what nostalgia's role is and what it all means. And there is one thing that does haunt me a little bit about this kind of thing.
Oh, let's talk about it.
We're in a moment where the rate of change is so dramatic that even kids that weren't alive for this stuff get nostalgia triggered when they look at it. And I worry that nostalgia is like a warm shower. It's a place to go and just step out of the stream of real life for a minute. And let me just be in a calm time where things change very slowly, where I already know the outcome of all this stuff. And so it's a retreat to safety and speaks to an underlying unease that I think is really permeating culture right now. And one of the cool things about a show like this is that people get to watch how my thinking changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have a community question coming up that will really highlight how my mind is shifting around AI. But right now I'm working with the pro version of ChatGPT to rewrite a screenplay. So I'm not writing it from scratch, just didn't quite get where I wanted it to get. And so now trying to push it into a deeper zone, working with ChatGPT on this has blown my mind. And in some ways it's increased my anxiety. And then in other ways, I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for. So for 25 years, I got into business. It's not quite 25 years, but close enough. I got into business so that I could get rich, so that I could build my own studio, only to find that, oh, those were the last 25 years of the art form that I cared about, meaning that the art form just doesn't, it's not going to be the same anymore. So the very thing that I loved about it is just gone.
Yeah.
And that was like a really hard awakening. Now, admittedly, I've fallen in love with entrepreneurship and the problem solving of it all, but like that's pretty devastating. And looking at the future and realizing I just keep hitting this fog and I can't see past 2 years. I don't trust anything that my mind hands me. My mind hands me things that it would hand a science fiction author, and that's interesting and it's fun to talk about, but I know it's not the true version of what's going to happen, just as I know that the book Snow Crash doesn't have cell phones in it. And so clearly he did not imagine the world as it actually developed, but got a lot right around imagining what we would call the internet now, but this thing that you spend a tremendous amount of your life in. So that gives me a lot of anxiety that I can't clearly see what the future is. But working with AI, I now feel like my ability to output this thing that I care very much about, which is the screenplay, has been magnified by, it's at least 10x. It might be 25x or even 50x. So what would have taken, so it takes, call it 8 to 12 months to write a screenplay. I'm going to be able to write a draft of this screenplay that's pretty radically different in a week of like 3 hours here, 4 hours there, like not just sitting down and spending time. That is astonishing. And it's reignited my creativity. And so in the span of like a month, I've gone from, oh, that moment is past, I'm not going to get to be able to enjoy it, to actually, wait a second. Now, even as the CEO, I'm able to carve out enough time to actually create this thing. And because it still needs me at this stage of its development, like if I just gave it a short prompt and said, write me a screenplay, it'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So in that, the movie Daryl way, it makes me feel needed. So I'm like, oh, no, don't do it like that. Do it like this, change that. Hey, I'm going to rewrite these 7 pages so you see what I'm going for. And then you go, bro, compare what you wrote with what I wrote. Tell me the differences so that I can basically confirm or say, no, you're picking up on the wrong thing. And it does it. It is nuts. And it is so good where it's like, oh, I now understand your pacing. Oh, I see how you want me to handle that character. Now, admittedly, I haven't yet then done the next one to see if it actually gets it, or because my big fear right now is that it is brilliant at outlining, because that I guarantee. The work that I've done with it on outlining is unbelievable, but it may always struggle until we get the O3 model, which is out, and I just haven't tried it yet. So that may already solve these problems, but it may always struggle to give me like that final thing where I'm like, yes, you really get it. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if O3 is then just going to go, oh no, we're back to my existential dread, because you just go write me a screenplay like this and 4 sentences and it outputs the whole thing. And now there's no sort of creative engagement with it. And so it doesn't feel good. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's my take. And by the way, everybody, while we're talking about video games and nostalgia, if you don't know, I'm actually live on Twitch 4 days a week, playing games, talking about games, and all the stuff that we talk about here. So come and join me there. We have a lot of fun.
Let's jump right into that community question, because I kind of want you to keep going on that. So he said, interesting that you were stopping comics because of AI. Is this more because of the opportunity AI provides to make bigger projects like games or other things, or because AI destroys the ability to make an impact with comics?
It is because comics will be so easy for AI. Like that is the T-ball setup for an AI because it's static images. It's really simple dialogue, really simple storytelling structures for the most part. I mean, there are some things like not Michael Moore. Oh man, I forget his first name. The guy that wrote The Watchmen. Alan Moore. I was going to make us look that one up. Alan Moore. That is literature disguised as a comic book. So we're probably not there yet. We're not there yet. But your average everyday web comic, like that's just AI strength all day, going to kill it. And so I had said we were stopping that before I had this experience with writing the Mary Mod script. So I may be rescinding that take in that I may use that format if it isn't just a cacophony of stuff that now you just can't get attention. So why bother? Because that was the other side. I just expect a wall of comics. And now you're just, again, marketing is the only thing that matters. And I don't want to play that game because of the embedded part of that question. I just don't need that intermediary phase anymore. So the comics were always meant to be the place you explored the idea, find out if the audience responds to it so that you could make the far more expensive thing like the video game or whatever. But now, given the infrastructure we've built on Project Kaizen, I can explore those stories directly inside the game because it will be so inexpensive to make. So it's both the 1-2 punch of it's probably going to be a wall of content that I don't want to bother trying to compete in. And then also, it's just so much easier now, so much cheaper to do a full film. Like I'm going to guess within 3 years, you'll be able to do a feature film, just prompting it, refining it. One person, literally a feature film, one person in, I don't know, maybe take you a month, maybe 2 months, but one person by themselves within 3 years makes an entire feature film. I'm almost certain that's going to happen. So that's where the game is so different. So different.
Okay. And last but certainly not least, we had this great exchange inside of a Walmart.
I hate everything about this.
Whoa. Hey!
I will scream in this whole entire store and I will kick everything.
You're gonna scream?
Yes, if you don't listen to me.
If I don't listen to her, she's gonna scream. That's what she just said.
Do you want to hear her scream?
No, I don't. I don't want to deal with this. Leave her alone. This is what I deal with. She's gonna scream in this whole entire store if I don't let her do whatever she wants to do. Oh my God. This is okay with you. This is why we deal with what we do. Do not go over there, Amelia. You don't even know what you're getting. Now you're just doing it on purpose. Leave them alone. I'm done. I can't even go grocery shopping with my own family anymore. This is insane. I don't even know what to do. I really don't. You think it's funny? It's not. It's not funny.
It's really not funny. It's really not funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. This is crazy. So I don't have kids, full disclosure, but this feels like a game of psychology. Now, with full acknowledgement that I don't know what it's like to have multiple kids and trying to be going to the grocery store and manage your whole life. And somebody once said, Tom, you're running your life on easy mode because you don't have kids. And I was like, yeah, I get that. Certainly from that perspective, it is far easier to not have kids than to have kids. But I will say that this person is training that child to act like this. And the sooner people understand the way that a child's mind works, the better off they will be. The sooner people understand incentives, the better off they will be. And she's literally narrating to the camera the thing that reinforces in this child that behavior. She's saying she's going to scream. The daughter hears that. She's saying, I don't want her to scream. The daughter hears that. She's saying, if I don't let her do what she wants to do, she's going to scream. So the little girl's going, oh, cool. I just have to keep threatening to scream, be willing to back it up if they call my bluff, and then I get whatever I want, including random detergent that I'm going to put in the thing for whatever reason, nobody knows why. And they let her get away with this, which is you're creating your own problem. Mm-hmm. And that is the thing that she does not seem to be aware of, that this is a problem that you're generating literally in real time on camera. I can hear you creating the problem. which is why the kid starts acting worse and worse as the video goes. And that's why the mom's even saying, like, you're doing it on purpose. Yes, she's doing it on purpose because you just narrated out loud how to get away with whatever she wants and to prove that she can bully. And so she's grabbing random things to see how far you're going to let me go. And if you actually buy that detergent, man, when this kid is 16, she's going to be a psychopath. So it does not make any sense. So one, there's a really interesting stat about brain development. So first of all, the brain doesn't stop developing until you're about 25. Moves through different phases. From the time you're born to the time you're 7, the brain, you can see this in the brain scans, that a child's brain is in a theta state, which is very similar to the state that they would be in hypnosis. And you have to think about childhood as the programming phase. So you and your significant other coming together, that is the hardware phase. So you decide what their hardware is going to be made of. But then you begin programming it through all of the feedback mechanisms, including reward and punishment. And so they are forming her map of the world around outbursts and dramatic behavior get you the things that you want. So she's learning about reward and punishment. My silence is your reward. My screaming is your punishment. And she has trained them to give her the things that she wants. But she's so young, she does not understand the second and third order consequences of people don't want to be around that. Your parents might put up with it, but other people are not. And so it's going to cause her all of these problems down the line, including just a deep sense of dissatisfaction. So that one freaks me out. And then when I dropped this into our sheet of things to cover today, you said that you have a particular style of parenting that you adhere to that I would like the public to hear about, Drew.
It was the Bernie Mac style of parenting, that children are terrorists and I don't negotiate with terrorists. So I can remember at a very young age, Lynn had an outburst at a grocery store.
Your daughter?
My daughter, yeah, she was 2 or 3. And it was classic. I want a candy bar, no candy bar. Went on the floor, started wailing and things like that. Me and my partner at the time, we kind of looked at each other and just walked away and got in the car, drove, got buying items and everything, left the aisle. She was just there kind of wailing by herself. And then it kind of took like 25, 30 seconds. Then she kind of realized like, wait, like, where are they? Like, like I'm crying, but like you could kind of literally see the mechanisms in her brain working like, oh, okay, that didn't work. So then she kind of got up, pouted, and then just kind of followed us. And that was it. So it's one of those moments where you nailed it on the head. It's how you reward and how you discipline. So you create those boundaries and it's up to you to reinforce those boundaries. But if it's empty threats and the kid knows that they can push you, then you're going to keep pushing you. And so,
right.
But
if I haven't made people mad enough yet, then let me go one step farther and say the same is true in your relationships. And there's going to be all kinds
like
of
boyfriend, girlfriend, wife,
100%. 100%. For sure. You're going to be shaping each other through reward and punishment. Simple as. You're not going to be hitting each other, but you're going to have a system where you want that thing from me, but the way that you're acting, I consider to be outrageous. I don't like that behavior. I'm not going to be around it. And you both do that to each other, hopefully with kindness and love and forgiveness and grace and all of that. But you're creating boundaries, baby. And if you're not, you're going to get a tyrant on the other side. Now, I was promised that Will Vu was going to make an appearance because when we were watching this clip as a team, he said some shit. Will, do you have the guts to come say that on camera?
Is Will over there?
I want to see. Let's get canceled by proxy. Come on, Will. This was the funniest shit I've ever heard in my life. We are about to find out if Will Vu is ready to face the marketplace of ideas. Here he comes. Let's go, Will. Let's go. All right. So Will has a demeanor where he's actually secretly pretty cocky. No. Come in with me. Come in. If we're going to get canceled, let's get canceled together, Will. What'd you say? All right. We just played that clip and then you leaned over and said.
Oh, that clip? I said, that is why beating is a tool in my culture's toolbox.
There it is. Everybody, Vietnam in the house being represented by Will. All right.
Spank your kids.
We're about to see how Vietnam feels about being called out like that. But I will say that, yes, my mother carried a wooden spoon everywhere that she went. If I was in tow, she once broke a wooden spoon on my ass, for the record. That's kind of like a point of pride for me. I'm not going to lie.
I just gained a little bit of respect for you, Tom. I didn't know you were a kid that got a spanking.
My mom did not play. My mom did not play. And I never felt abused ever.
Yeah.
But there was even one time, my mom was such a gangster, where she told me to do, like, go to my room or whatever. And I said no. And I bolted outside. Now, this woman had time to chase me down, stop, pick up a branch, catch me, and then spank me with the branch. And I was like,
Switch.
my mom does not play for real. And I am very grateful. Mom, shout out. I am grateful to the way that I was raised. Remember, everybody, I don't have kids. You don't have to worry about it, whether I would do it or not. But, ooh, buddy. Yeah. Boundaries, Drew.
They are important. They are important. That's all I got.
All right, everybody. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. If you're into podcasts, make sure that you catch us wherever you find your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. Tragedy strikes last night in DC. RFK gets attacked in his confirmation hearing. People want more free healthcare, and AI might be the solution. Sam Altman is either salty or actually likes salt poured in his wounds as he promises to outcompete DeepSeek. Plus,